All right, whenever you're ready.
I'm going to start without you.
Fine, then. I'm Batman.
Bye, Batman. Okay, welcome back to another YouTube video. It's been a while since I posted, and if you keep up with my personal life on Instagram, you know it's because I got married. And so without further ado, I would like to introduce my now husband, David Hammond.
Good
Yay.
morning, good afternoon. Batman has arrived. We're here. All is good. Taking care of little Mallory, and today we're gonna have a juicy video for you guys. So let's begin.
Show them the rings.
Yep. There
Our
you go,
rings.
guys. It's real.
Married January 28th, 2025. We met in person December 2nd, 2024. And as you can tell from the title of the video, that is what we're going to be talking about, how we were able to get married in less than 2 months. We're just going to go in chronological order.
All right, guys, so as a bit of context, my name is David Hammond. I run a ministry called Christ Developed, and that was really it. I was on my Paul arc, that's what we call it, where you're just single, celibate, serving the Lord. Give me an amen. And I was doing that for about 4 years. I was in a relationship prior for 5 years, thought I was gonna marry her. It didn't work out. I then found Jesus, became born again, and then was single and celibate. Now, nearing the end of that period, right before I found Mallory, I noticed that I was getting hit with a bunch of temptations. I'm talking like demonic oppression, just like hopelessness, you're gonna be alone forever, and that really never hit me until the last probably month before I met her. And the reason we say this is because Mallory had something similar, which she'll explain, and we believe that right before, the Bible says that what God has joined together, let no man separate. We believe that Satan knew that we were about to come together, so he threw as many wicked darts to both of us in different ways to just prevent that from happening. So for me, that was, I'll be honest with you guys, reaching back out to my ex, meeting up with her, thinking like, oh, I guess she's the only girl I've kind of known that way, so maybe I should get back with her. Of course, God's grace didn't allow that to happen, and I met Mallory right afterwards, and then her spiritual warfare was...
The year prior to this entire thing, or me meeting David, I had kind of put myself in a position, made a pact within myself, I guess you could say, that I wasn't going to entertain any sort of relationship for like 3 to 5 years. Now, that can be great if we're in our season of singleness, where we're fully devoted and committed to the Lord, but the second that God calls us into a relationship, it's actually sinful, I guess you could say, to force celibacy or to force yourself being single if God's calling you into a biblical marriage. And so again, within that same week that he was going through the highest level of his spiritual warfare, I had an encounter with the Lord where he was basically reminding me of this verse in Proverbs where it says, a man makes many plans, but God ultimately directs his steps. So I was questioning, I'm like, okay, Lord, what am I doing that doesn't align with your perfect will? And he spoke to me immediately about marriage and relationships. And he revealed to me that I had set this pact of being single for X amount of years, not because I was fully content with the Lord, but because I was afraid of getting hurt again, because I love very deeply and I'm a very passionate person, and that's been taken advantage of in the past. And so my heart was very closed off, which is why at this whole year prior, I had gotten more into like a masculine demeanor and stuff because I was so afraid of getting hurt again. Like I said, I was in this place of like hurting people before they had the chance to hurt me, if that makes sense. So again, very closed off to relationships, but the Lord had really softened my heart in that moment and told me to let go of any of all time frames for a relationship. I don't really know what that means, but little did I know that was the Lord saying that he's bringing the man of God that's supposed to lead me for the rest of my life very, very soon. That was a week before Dave and I had actually mutually reached out to each other on Instagram. We had been mutually following each other since December of 2023, I believe, when I started my online ministry. And when we had reached out to each other, I believe I texted you first, but it was just a matter of us mutually wanting to get advice on evangelism. He was asking me for advice on how to evangelize the LGBTQ because that was something I was very well versed in, and I was asking for some advice and mentorship on evangelism in general with things like atheism and apologetics and polemics, which is something he operates very heavily in. And we had our first phone call. That phone call lasted about an hour. Again, it was strictly business. Him and I were so mission focused on growing the ministry, not to exalt our own name, but to make Jesus' name known in every way, shape, and form. And we just bonded over that. From there, it kind of just naturally, him started becoming like a mentor to me.
Yeah, so like Mallory said, I was doing Christ Developed, which was evangelism, apologetics, polemics, full-time for I don't know, probably a few months at that point, and so we met very mutually because of that. She was an evangelist, I was. We were just talking the Bible and preaching, etc., etc. And naturally what began to happen is as we sent voice memos or texts or eventually got on calls, I just noticed how congruent we were, how similar we were. Again, there was very little to no attraction on either one of our ends because that's not why we were speaking. And I just noticed how good of a fit we were.
Like you said, there was no attraction. There was no us trying to look for a relationship within each other because we were so focused on the mission at hand. But one thing I would like to say that I was really, really attracted to was the fact that he was so intellectual. Like, I could have very deep, whether it be spiritual conversations with him, and we could challenge one another. I think that's the best way to explain this whole like friendship or like brother and sister season of like we were just sharpening one another. It was iron against iron. And so fast forward, David was already planning on coming to Texas, where I currently reside, Dallas, Texas, because he had a business partner here in Dallas, which I actually knew of that same person through another mutual friend, which is like another crazy connection. But again, he was already planning on coming to Dallas, and I offered to film for him because that's something that I've done for almost every ministry that I've been a part of, or individual ministries. I always help with like filming the evangelism and stuff. Leading up to David coming to Dallas, there was a lot of stuff that him as a brother in Christ in my life and a mentor at the time was really encouraging me to step into. And it was really difficult for me because it was requiring a lot of faith, whether just changes with the ministry, just challenging me with like evangelism and stuff. And so I really started to seek the Lord on if this is somebody that I should be trusting in my life. And this is about 2 weeks before we met in person. And I just kept feeling this peace in my spirit over and over again of the Lord telling me to trust him, trust his leadership. And I remember me like seeking the Lord very diligently and being honest with him and saying, Lord, I don't think it's smart for me to trust a man of God that isn't my future husband. And I heard loud and clear the Lord say, I know, that's why I'm telling you to trust him. So crazy enough, before I'd even met this man in person, I had already gotten that check in my spirit that I can fully submit to whatever this man is leading me to do. And alongside all of that, I kept feeling this extreme burden to pray for him, more than just like a brother, but really to cover him in prayer with his ministry, his personal life, any temptations that he may be facing. And that kind of already gave me the, I guess, green light in my spirit, or the check that he was my future husband, because I know from the older woman of God in my life, they always teach me that one of the biggest roles of a wife to her husband is covering him in prayer. And then one last thing I'll add before we actually met in person was I obviously had gained a lot of attraction with him because the Lord telling me to like trust him and stuff. So I started to find him a lot more attractive. And again, I just kind of started to realize that him and I really were like the guy and girl version of one another. So it was really, really easy to be friends with him. And it's funny, I think this was a few days before we had met. I basically called him to tell him that I liked him without telling him that I liked him, because I didn't want to open my heart to somebody that wasn't even willing to, I guess, reciprocate that. I don't know if you want to share about how you reacted to that phone call. But.
Yeah, so again, guys, like we said, guys, Mallory and I were completely looking at it logistically, just from a business, platonic, viewpoint. And I had kind of an idea that she liked me as like a little girl, because I am 5 years older, so just like a little girl crush. But I was like, whatever, just another day, got many of them. No, I'm kidding. And so anyways, it wasn't until she gave me a phone call one day basically saying, I like you, man, but she said it in the weirdest, most like discreet way possible, where she was like, I don't like you, but I like you. And then at that point, I kind of knew like, oh, wow. I was a little worried and disappointed because I did, that's not where I wanted it to go. And once she said that, I knew like, dang, I've imprinted on this chick. Like, yeah. All right, I guess we'll see where it goes from there.
And I'll add too, I was very upset when the Lord kept pressing on my heart to fully trust him, because I was so locked up internally. I didn't want to trust anybody. And like I said, I had been so reluctant to even get in a relationship. So the thought of opening up my heart to somebody was very scary, because I understood that the more and more you open your heart, you open yourself up to the same degree of getting hurt by them. But I had to just trust the Lord. And I trusted that God, he's such a good dad. He's not going to tell me to fully put my faith and trust in somebody if they're going to lead me astray. So with all that said, we then met in person December 2nd, and he was coming strictly for like business. I offered to help film and everything. We ended up going to multiple college campuses, and he was evangelizing, and then there was times where I would tag evangelize as well. All I can say with that whole experience was it just fit like a hand in a glove. David always says that. And we just really hit it off. It was kind of like I had known him for a really long period in my life, and we just were hanging out as really good friends that whole week. I don't know if you want to add to that.
So again, when I came to Dallas, Texas, Mallory and I had been talking for a few weeks beforehand, just getting to know each other. I knew at that point, just before she liked me. And again, though, I just wanted to play it by ear. I didn't want to go into it knowing, like, oh, we're going to get married, this, nothing. It was just, let's just court, let's vet, especially as a man, we have to look at things very logically, because if I screw over her, if I screw over myself, it screws over her by default, right? It's like dominoes. So I met her, it was good, we evangelized, that was the main kind of cornerstone holding us together, and then I just noticed when we finished evangelizing, maybe let's go get food, kind of just, hang out in between, even drives from different universities, I noticed again how congruent we were, and I just let the Lord speak. Like I didn't want to force anything. I was like, God, if you want this to happen, then it's gonna happen, right? I'm not gonna tinker too many things. And yeah, I got to know her more and more. We were very congruent. It was cool. Again, though, there wasn't, maybe she was attracted, but we were just, it wasn't like, I didn't know that I really wanted to actually give this a good shot until probably the last day we were together, where we were watching a movie, we're cuddling a little bit, nothing crazy, man. I just put my hand over her like this, okay? And we were doing that, and then she came afterwards as she was going home, and you want to tell them what you said?
Yeah, so again, I don't really like playing games, and I'm so mission focused. My life is fully submitted to the Lord to the point where I understand my only reasonable service is to win as many souls over to Christ. So again, I don't want to waste any time. So obviously we were flirting that week. We were very compatible. And after that one night where we had kind of been touchy, not in a sexual way, it was just sitting close to each other, cuddling.
Well.
Okay. Another. I'm not gonna add that part. Okay.
Come on now.
Okay. No, stop. Okay. So as I was leaving that night, not too late, I may add, I just straight up asked him, putting the ball in his court. I said, hey, can I ask you a question? And he kind of laughed and he was like, yeah, you can ask. And I said, are you just going to go back to Canada and pretend like none of this happened? And I share this because I feel like a lot of girls are really afraid to just kind of be bold about what they want. Again, if this is really from the Lord, it wasn't me forcing anything, because I was secure in of myself. And I told him that. I'm like, look, I know that the Lord's charged me to help you for this season, and I'm going to be obedient to that. If these feelings aren't mutual, then that's okay. Like, I'm just gonna help you for a season, and it's up to you if I'm gonna end up being a helper long term.
And then yeah, so she basically put it in my court. As a man, I truly do believe that we have the final say. We're the leaders, we're called first. So I really had to court her. God usually, I feel, speaks to the woman first to say, yes, this guy's good. And then I very logically have to discern, okay, are we actually compatible? Yeah. Are we good? Because if we're not, if you screw that up as the man, you screw over both you guys. Right. So from that point on, once she said that, I knew officially, okay, she likes me. This is, if I want to pursue this, I can. I got kind of all the green flags. And then I remember before going home, I prayed to God, because I was like, God, look, I'm kind of 50-50 on this right now. I've been very comfortable building the ministry by myself, single, celibate, yada, yada, but I will do this if you want. What do you want me to do? And I just vividly remember driving back home that night, or back to the airport, and God spoke in my spirit, which he doesn't do too loud, but it was pretty loud. And he said, it's not about you. Meaning, it's not really about what David wants. What does Mallory want? Oh, are we up to each other's likings like a buffet? Oh, is she tall enough? She this? No. It's about the kingdom. Are you going to win souls? That's why I put you guys two together. So I said, dang, I had that fear of the Lord in me. And I was like, okay. I straightened up and I said, I will give this an honest shot. So from that point forward, I went back home. We then had 6 weeks before I came back, because I was going to come back again to evangelize, go to universities. Like I told you guys, I'm kind of sick. So from that 6-week period, I just went full steam ahead. I was like, all right, let's see it. And we entered the courting period, the real courting vetting period, where we FaceTimed every night for 4 or 5 hours. Really
sometimes longer.
Yeah, sometimes longer. I got a little sleep because of this chick. And actually, you got a little sleep.
Yes, it was, yeah, because I was still at school. We would be FaceTiming late at night, and then I have to wake up for school at 6 in the morning. But it was all so intentional and deliberate by the Lord every single day. Even to the fact that his hard drive, where he was supposed to be editing videos from, ended up crashing for 3 weeks. He had to get it worked on and stuff. So that gave us an even bigger open door to be able to really talk more and court and vet one another, and really just test the spirits further.
It's a little dark.
Yeah.
My love is your love.
Okay, and then fast forward to only 2 days after he had gone back to Canada. This may sound very hyper spiritual, but this is very significant in our testimony of us coming together. But this is gonna sound crazy. So in the past, if you guys are familiar with my ministry or just me personally, you guys know that I absolutely love Jesus. And again, my only reasonable service to life is to win as many souls over to Christ. I carry such a heavy burden for that. And I know that God has called me to do really big things. And in the past, I've kind of had these like visions. I guess you could say it was an open vision. Within these visions, there's kind of like this ball of power. Again, you may think I'm kind of nuts, but this is going to make sense. Stay with me. It's like this orb, I guess you could say. It was like this fiery blue thing, and I always understood it as like kind of my anointing, my calling and everything. And the Lord, for the past 2 years since I'd been born again, since October of 2022, I was charged with, or just feeling this really heavy conviction to really protect that there was going to be a lot of people that were going to try to steal that and everything, but I just had to keep being obedient to what the Lord was calling me to do. And I had this supernatural encounter with the Lord 2-3 days after he had gone back to Canada, and we were in this courting vetting period. The Lord had asked me, like kind of took me back to this open vision, and he was asking me basically to give that up to him. And I was like, whoa, this doesn't make any sense. I was like, Lord, you charged me to care for this, to protect this, to like walk out my calling. And I heard the Lord very clear in my spirit say, and you did well up until this point, but where I'm taking you, you cannot handle it on your own moving forward. And again, he was asking me, are you willing to give up your life and living out your ministry the way that you always thought you would, for his sake and for my sake? This is what the Lord was saying. The Lord was literally asking me to lay down my entire life, to fully submit everything to this man that, yes, I believe the Lord has as my future husband, but there was no like official security in that. Like, I didn't know if he'd fully like me. I didn't know if we were actually getting married. But I share all this to say, of a lot of women, Christian women especially, they think that, oh, you don't fully submit until you have that security of marriage. But in the reality, the Lord was asking me to fully submit before we were even married. And that's how it should be done, I believe, even biblically, because the man has to be able to see if you are fitting as a helpmate. If you can't submit before marriage, how does he have the security and the knowing that you're going to submit after marriage? And so again, I had this supernatural encounter. I remember it was like, yes, I give it up. And I remember it like floated away from me. This probably sounds crazy. And I thought, when I get these open visions, I'm kind of like, okay, maybe I am crazy. If it's true, like it'll all play out in the future. Crazy. And so I kind of just left it at that. I didn't tell him, same thing, like I didn't tell him that the Lord told me he was my future husband before I'd met him, because again, if it's from God, it's all going to play out. And then sure enough, 2 days later,
2 days later, I was working labor, just like a good old Chad, stacking in boxes, working in a fridge, and out of nowhere, I got sucker punched in the most gruesome way by God, with the fear of the Lord of protecting this little girl's soul. And I had no clue where it came from. I was working. I couldn't just clock out. I wanted to just leave and go home, but I couldn't. I just started my shift, and I probably had the most anxiety, not in like a bad way, but just like if I screw this up, it's not just my life. See, if I'm alone and single, that's me. I deal with the repercussions, whatever. But now if I'm going to move forward with marriage, she's going to deal with it. If I screw up, it affects both of us. And I had never taken that responsibility before in my life. Of course, I've never been married before. And I felt that, and it felt like this, now that we understand, it was her little orb. She set off like a little volleyball to David, and then it just smacked me out of nowhere, and I had a choice. It was very, very important, guys. God gave me the free will. He said, you can either choose it, or you can run away. Like, there's not, like, I wasn't being forced to it, and I just knew, I gotta do it. As uncomfortable as it was, I need to pursue this path. So I did. I accepted it. I took that orb into my system. Come on. And from that point on, it literally went away the next day. Like, the anxiety went away, and it actually transmuted into strength, into authority, into grace, into God saying, you got it, you passed the test, now I'm going to help both you guys, because I was getting anxious because I thought it was all on me. I said, God, if I'm going to do this, I need your strength. He gave me that strength, and then that's when we really move forward.
I wanted to share that little thing, as hyper spiritual as that may sound, just because I quite literally, like I said, was giving up my entire life, my anointing, my ministry. At that moment, I thought that meant I would never speak again. I would never teach again. I was laying down everything. I was like, Lord, I trust you. If you want me to be this man's full-time helpmate, and that's just staying at home and doing, cooking, cleaning, which I actually really enjoy, I was like, okay, because I know that God knows what's best for me. And I think that was also primarily just a heart check on my end, because there had been some idolization of like me kind of being the boss of everything, like me having my own ministry, yada, yada, yada. And the Lord is like, no. As your place as a woman, you are called to be led, and the man is supposed to lead. And so, like he said, after that, he felt like he had more authority, and, he was really feeling like the Lord's grace very heavy over him. I also felt a lot heavier of a grace after I willfully submitted. It was a lot easier to submit to everything he was telling me, and that's where I kind of want to get into a little bit of our courting phase, which we'll make more videos in the future to go more in detail with, to help other Christians with it. But I feel like a lot of people, even in the Christian space, but especially in the secular world, they treat dating or courting as they have these like 2 to 3 months where it's very la la land, like, oh, it's very sweet and like hearts and roses and stuff. But for us, it was kind of like World War III.
Yeah.
Yeah, like spiritually being attacked, but also we were testing the crap out of each other.
So basically, guys, like I said, dang, this video long. Like I said beforehand, guys, there were like phases. View it kind of like, I don't know, building or like powerlifting or something. You have different like macro cycles, right? Where the first phase was us just getting to know, like, is this gonna work? The second phase, which is what we're now married, obviously, but the second phase was, okay, let's go full forward. I took her little volleyball orb. Everything is a go. I know she likes me. I can do it with the strength of God. At that point, for those 6 weeks, guys, I drilled the crap into her because I really had to know. Again, guys, this is not like a pride thing, but like as a man of God, which a lot of men are not men of God, you need to build spiritual authority. You need to build receipts financially, spiritually, physically. Like, can you lead? Can you be a protector? And I knew I did that work for a long time. So I said, look, if I'm going to do this, I need to make sure you will not screw me over, okay? And if you're getting triggered, shut up. So anyways,
What the heck?
So anyways, for those 6 weeks, guys, it was really just me calling out Mallory for some things she was idolizing. And again, she was never like that bad, but it was, view it like a spine with scoliosis. It was really just lining that up. Just like, for all you feminists getting angry, God was lining up my spine, right? Anything I was idolizing or being selfish with, God was chastening me. And that's the responsibility, where we chasten them to say, okay, let's fix this up, yada, yada. What are your thoughts on this? We're talking every hard question you could think of, and Mallory passed every single one, and it wasn't.
How to restart the video.
And it wasn't until the last week, we said there was a 6-week period, the last week where I really got that check in my spirit that I felt, you know what, Mallory, you really proved that you're willing to lay down your life, honestly, to follow my lead as I lay down my life for Jesus' sake. So the last week I felt check, I felt confirmed, and the final mat pack, the final phase is when I came back to Dallas. We were gonna see, you know, that includes meeting her family, meeting my family. If this goes well, I'm telling you, it's like 3-part series. If this goes well, then we're good.
Right. One thing I will add, and again, we'll make more videos expanding on the courting period in the future, but within 3 days of us courting, we asked every single question and more that you would ask in like premarital counseling, or even my mom made a comment that we had talked about things that some couples who have been married for 10-15 years don't even have the ability, or I guess like humility, to be able to ask each other. Because again, I didn't want to waste my time. He didn't want to waste his time. And my thought process is, if this is truly from the Lord, I want to get going on whatever he has moving forward. And so again, fast forward, like he was saying, this is when, I guess 6 weeks later, he had came back. He had already gotten the check in his spirit. I had gotten the check in my spirit way before. And actually him drilling into me so hard over that time period was the biggest green flag on my end, because I understand biblically that the fallen nature of a man, which I witnessed in men growing up, was to be very passive, to not have the strength or the courage to be able to put their foot down and say things that may hurt the other people or the woman in their life's feelings, but it's for the greater good of their relationship and for that person. And so the fact that he was willing to say and communicate very difficult, hard things with me showed me that he was going to be able to lead me well, which is, you know, whether it be in ministry or in my personal walk. But anyways, he came in person back to Texas 6 weeks later. I believe this was like January 13. And keep in mind, like, he was wrestling for some time of like, okay, well, maybe I'll come and move here in the future. But he just took a leap of faith through this time period. You want to speak on that?
Yeah, so basically, guys, like I told you, Mallory makes a lot of changes because I check her and God does it to me. That's how it goes, okay? So because I knew this was going to be it, it's a green light, I dropped everything, man. I live in Canada. I'm an immigrant. I lived in Canada. I'm now in the States, so I had to sell the condo, right, give up rent, and there's no going back. Once I do that, someone else is going to take it. So condo, bye-bye. My job that I was working part-time, bye-bye. What else? Move across, move everything into like 2 little suitcases and really just do that on faith. Yeah. And that's what we did. I came back here. Yeah. We didn't even really go over that, but I came back here, we met, we got the green light, all was good. I then met her family, guys, the mom and dad. That went well too. Glory to God. They liked me. Everything was smooth. And that was my mindset. Like, God, if this is going to work, you're going to pull through. Otherwise, like, you don't want us to be together. She then came back to Canada, met my mom again, all green flags. And I was nervous, guys, because to the world, this is moving very fast. Like, are you serious? You guys are planning on getting married in 2 months? You know, my family's not like, they're Christian, but they're not, you know, they're still a bit more worldly. So that went well too. And then we both decided, all right, that's it. She helped clean the condo. We sold the condo. We sold my car. I forgot about that as well. I had to sell my car. All of it, one by one. Bing, 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 bing. Go ahead.
We packed his entire life up in a matter of 4 days. And I remember there was this really sweet moment. I don't know why I want to add this, but I think it's just a testimony and an example where a lot of people say they want to give everything up to Christ. But I saw this man live it out, and it encourages me so much every single day. I remember he was like standing in the kitchen when we were packing everything. And I just remember feeling the Lord be so pleased with him because he literally was giving everything up, taking a step of faith of like, before he'd even seen me again in person, because again, we were just like courting each other virtually up until this point. He had already given up his entire life, and it was just him fully trusting the Lord. And again, that just really encourages me, inspires me every day, or I just really want to honor you in that. But anyways, with that said, so unpacked his entire life. That's a whole crazy story in of itself we may share in the future. I feel like our personalities, or even just the way the Lord kind of keeps us on our toes, like everything's just very quick. We're very quick to be obedient.
Risk takers.
Yeah, risk takers, which is why we like barely, when I say barely made the flight back to Texas from Canada, it was like God's grace was so heavy on it. We got there like 30 minutes before the gates closed, somehow went through all the international security and like was able to get the suitcases through. It was just crazy. It was chaotic, but it was super cool. And I think like a really good summary or mark of our relationship is like Satan tries to throw so many darts at us, mentally, physically, spiritually, like even interrupting sleep and stuff all the time.
Hence why I'm tired.
Yeah.
And sick.
In the midst of all that chaos, I guess because of the chastening the Lord took both of us individually in our lives before we met each other, the amount of strength that has built up in us, no matter how much we get attacked, we're just very chill throughout it. And I think even more so now that we have each other, like it's just very calm in the storm.
Stoic.
Yes, very stoic. That like even if things get like really, really excited, we're just like, nope, just good. Like just another day. And that's kind of how a lot of this has felt, where a lot of people, like you said, thinks that, oh, you're going too fast, it's happening too soon.
And we tell them, y'all need more faith, okay? When you're highly called and anointed, sometimes your life looks like it goes real quick to the world, and that's actually a good sign. We are called to be set apart, so stop pretending to be like the world. You need all this validation. They're not going to validate you. Your family, probably not. Your friends, that's okay. That's a green light as long as you got the confirmation from God, okay?
Yeah.
Very important. Who do you serve at the end of the day?
Yeah.
Man. So yeah, that's kind of it, guys. We ended up getting married, and we gotta wrap this thing up because she's gonna talk forever.
Yeah, I do talk a lot.
I'm getting hungry too. We need to eat
yeah,
beef.
we kind of jumped all over the place at the end of that. I guess quick summary, because I want to add like a little overlay of videos of this. He came to Texas, met my parents. My parents were not only approving, but they were very, very excited because they knew that, yes, this may seem crazy to the outside world, but they're very spirit-led, and they had already been getting word and peace from the Lord about all of this. So they were very, very excited, and they knew I've always kind of been a black sheep. I kind of just do what I believe the Lord's telling me to do, even if that looks crazy to other people. And then when we had came back from Canada, we ended up having the courtroom ceremony. And again, we'll make videos expanding on this in the future, but we really, him and I being both very like logical thinkers and trying to just do things the most efficient way, we thought it was going to be better for us to just get legally married so that I can now be his full-time helpmate. We can get his citizenship stuff started. And of course, in all honesty, that also takes away sexual temptation. Let's just keep it real. Like if we're legally married, then we don't have to worry about like being in that gray area and trying not to like fornicate and everything.
That's also why I'm lower energy.
Okay, so yeah, we got legally married at the courtroom. Crazy enough, we actually got married by the same judge that my sister and brother-in-law got married at, which was super sweet. It was a very intimate, small ceremony with my parents, my grandma, and my brother, my brother-in-law and my sister, which is how I kind of wanted to always be since I was little. I'm just very introverted. I don't really like being around a lot of people, and kind of same thing with him. So we most likely will be having a bigger celebration later in the future, but who knows? Because again, I'm just more concerned about winning as many people over to Jesus. The last thing that I'll add is, like David was mentioning, we're supposed to be set apart. That's what being holy means, is to be set apart, to not look like the world. We're in the world, not of it. And so a lot of people kind of looked at our situation and think like, oh, we can't even have a big ceremony. But I just felt this really big, I guess, check in my spirit or encouragement from the Lord of like, are you willing to give up what the world thinks is good as far as like the big ceremony, the super expensive rings, which we still got really nice ones. I'll just add, thank you for that, by the way.
You're welcome, chick.
But,
And I got her a house. We got a townhouse too.
Which was crazy. We forgot to add that the Tuesday, January 28th, that we got legally married, we got approved for our townhouse. So everything, as crazy fast as all this has seemed, God just breathed on it so heavily. His hand was over everything. We kid you not. Again, going down to like, we should have missed the flight to Canada. We should have missed the flight back to the States. We shouldn't have sold his car the day before leaving. We shouldn't have gotten the condo ready. But like, we shouldn't have gotten the townhouse, you know, because he technically isn't a U.S. citizen quite yet, although we're working on that. So if you want to pray for that process to be smooth,
come on now.
Please do. But none of that like should have happened, but God's grace was so heavy on it because we were walking out by faith. When you step out in faith, that allows God's grace to really pour heavily over your life. We've been married now for what, a week and a half?
About 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So take our advice, because we've been married for 2 whole weeks. Yeah, going strong.
And it's been good. Again, since then, it's been pretty chaotic. We've had to move into temporary housing. We have an Airbnb before we actually move into our townhome on March 7th, I believe. But again, it's all just been very seamless. And by God's grace, we've been able to be very stoic throughout all of this. We don't really get shaken. I mean, I may have had a mental breakdown once. But again, the Lord has... Okay, yeah, maybe twice, but now I have a husband now who's so sweet and so patient with me that he just loves on me in those moments. And when he gets a little stressed or maybe gets a little worried on some things, I'm just very quick to really love on him. Yeah. And cook for him.
Love on that.
And I keep everything nice and clean.
Yeah, no, she's great. She's great. She helps me be much more efficient. But we'll make many more videos on like what's required from men and women because, again, we're still pretty new at this, but we knew going into it, even before marriage, like what our roles are. Because yes, you have roles. Stop pretending like you don't. Otherwise, why would you get married? Don't be no tofu, useless Christian.
Again, we can add so much more, but I hope what you guys can get out of this video is we're all called differently. And I believe there is a Bible verse, I'm not exactly sure which one, where it says, don't look to the left or right. Just look straight ahead, whatever God has for you. And that's going to look crazy to the world. And in some instances, that may even look crazy to a lot of Christians. But that's why it's so important for us to stay very close to Jesus, to be connected to the true vine, like John 15 talks about. And the wisest thing you can do is just being obedient to what the Lord's calling you to do individually. And when you step out in faith in doing that, even if you're a little off, the Lord will course correct immediately. What else would I add?
Be obedient, guys. Take risks, okay? Walk out in faith. God has no reason to ride out for you if he knows you're not going to be a willing vessel. He still will have grace no matter what, but like the grace will just continue to almost compound the more he knows you're going to take those steps. So be bold. Stop living for man. Live for God. Actually be a real, obedient, useful Christian, and he will add everything unto you. Matthew 6:33.
Amen. Thank you guys so much for watching. We will be expanding on all of these things so much more in the future. So comment below if you want us to expand on anything specifically we talked about, whether the courting phase, us meeting, the Paulina arc, or marriage, whatever it is. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more YouTube videos like this. And I can't wait to see you guys on the next one. Signing off. Now, Mallory Faith Hammond and
David Christian Hammond. Can't make this up.
Isn't that so cool?
Come on.
His middle name is Christian and mine is Faith.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Have an amazing day. We'll check you next time. Much love. Peace. Right. I'm getting hungry. How's it?